I'm Mike AD, and welcome to the Delta League podcast. This is a special edition Week 12 trade deadline results show. And also, don't forget that Delta is the only sport where 3 teams play at the same time. Now, let's move on to the results and who got traded. Because not only were there people that asked for trades, other people got traded today. With 15 out of the 18 teams, they were active today. So let's just get started with who got traded. We're going to start in Vancouver with Ravi Cutter. He asked for a trade a couple weeks ago and he said, I'm going to give 100%. Well, they were very truthful because Marco Principe, the GM of Vancouver, made that trade incredibly quick. And he goes to Toronto for Bondi Reed. That is a good trade both ways. Now, Kipper Grimmett, who was having a lot of problems with the French media in Quebec. Well, he today goes to Chicago, and he's traded for Bartel Omartian, who's traded for the second time this year. He's becoming a journeyman after 4 months. Now, Jack Ith from Detroit, he gets traded, regardless of his ability to beat GM Mike Facciolo in a hammer curl competition. Now, Jack Ith goes to Philadelphia for Maurizio Fiori. Then, Rohan Kuno from Salt Lake City, he gets dealt to Dallas for Alexander Farner. And Randy Magnuson, the best name in all of Delta League, he gets dealt to Denver for a 4th rounder. Now, this isn't the end of this, because there were some now huge names in the world of Delta League, and they got traded today. Who got traded today? Gabriella Davignon from Phoenix. She got traded today because earlier in the week, the charges against Phoenix player Nan Freeling, they got dropped after a investigation into an event when they were in Toronto, where Freeling apparently beat up a escort, and as it appears, it was false, and she was just looking for money. But Gabriella Davignon went into the GM's office and said, I don't want to be on the same team with that son of a bitch, so you better trade me or else I am out of here. She's going to Toronto. Forget this, Demetrius Lindbergh. That looks like a good trade both frickin' ways. Now, let's move on, because that's not the end of it. Check out this. Chip Chiozzi from Philadelphia. Seattle pulls off more frickin' larceny of the treasure. Now Chip Chiozzi plays for Seattle, and they get him, forget this, Ariel Vignola and a 2nd round pick. And that's not the end of Philadelphia wheeling and dealing. They also trade the captain again. The 2nd captain this year has been traded out of Philadelphia. He's going to Montreal for Arnold Morel and a 3rd rounder. Now, let's just keep going. Lord Matthew was dealt to Boston for a second round pick. And Jamie Ekstrom from Chicago, she was dealt to Atlanta for a second round pick. I don't know how many draft picks they have left. I don't think they have anything left. No. Now, Fab Whittlesey from Dallas, she got dealt to Chicago for a third round pick. Lots of picks changing hands. And now, Seattle, as if you thought that that team was perfect. Well, today, they sever ties with Max Durkee, and he heads to L.A. for Lalo Celli and a third round draft pick. Now, you see a lot of these draft picks going all over the place. And just to keep track of this one, you look at a team like Seattle, who today picked up an extra third rounder, but they lost the second rounder. You got Los Angeles, who picked up a fourth rounder, but then gave up a third rounder. Then you have Chicago, who has dealt or changed hands with all of their draft picks this year. However, Chicago has picked up an additional first rounder and an additional second rounder. So that means they'll have 2 picks in the first 2 rounds of the draft, but as a result, they have let go of a third rounder and a fourth rounder. Now, New York has picked up a second rounder and a third rounder, and Philadelphia, has made deals for 4 draft picks in this deadline. They gained a second rounder and lost one, and then they gained another one and lost another one. And Atlanta. This year, they have given up, not only have given up their first rounder for Jeff Septimus, they've also given up their second rounder, not thinking very much about the future in Atlanta. I guess they want to win today. Wow. Now, on the waiver wire, Miami picked up Rick Daigneault from Denver and Shinsuke Katayama from Boston, and Dallas ended up picking up Tyler Huerta from Atlanta on waivers. So, we're going to look at the additions and the subtractions from all the teams, and then I'm going to do some analysis on who I think won this trade deadline and who is the team to look out for going into the Wheel of Fire in 5 weeks. Now, we always start from the West Coast when we do our game reports. So, when we do our trade deadlines, we always start on the East Coast. So, Miami lets go of Lord Matthew and Randy Magnuson. And as a result, they pick up Rick Daigneault and Shinsuke Katayama and what looks like a second round pick and a fourth round pick. So in a lot of ways, on the player front, they don't look like they improved too much, but the future of Miami looks like they're going to have a few more tools to work with in the future. Now, Atlanta, they let go of another fucking draft pick. Now it's a second round draft pick. So they only got 2 draft picks. 2 draft picks in the upcoming draft. They put Tyler Huerta on waivers, who was picked up. And they pick up Jamie Ekstrom from Chicago, which is not a bad acquisition whatsoever. Now, Washington did nothing on this trade deadline. Nothing. Philadelphia was the most active team here, and they should have been. But they did not trade the players that people thought that they would trade. They trade the star of this team, Chip Chiozzi. He scored 40 goals this year. He's going to Seattle. How did they pull off that larceny? Captain Duke Buchanan. He's going to Montreal. Then we got Maurizio Fiore. Also, he's left Philadelphia. Now, who did they get? Ariel Vignola. Granted, a decent player. In Seattle, he didn't need to be a really big factor because they have a lot of really great players. And Arnold Morel, who has been on now 2 teams this year. They pick up Jack Ith, just in case somebody passes out on the bench. But you look at what they subtracted and what they gained. I mean, superficially doesn't really look too good. And they also picked up a 2nd rounder and a 3rd rounder, which means that they're thinking about the future. It's almost like this team is in full burn down mode. Like, holy shit. Dallas fans threw jerseys onto the court in the last game. I mean, what are Philadelphia fans going to do? They just traded away their franchise today. Now, New York did nothing. Nothing. Boston exchanged 2 lesser players. They let go of Shinsuke Katayama and a 2nd round pick. And Lord Matthew joins the revolution. I don't know exactly what kind of revolution he's going to be leading. Now, Montreal, they get rid of Kipper Grimmett, who seemed to have a really big problem with the French media, and Arnold Morel, who now moves on to his 2nd team, and they pick up Duke Buchanan, the captain from Philadelphia, and Bartel O'Martian, who is a good supplementary player. And as a result, they had to let go of a 3rd round pick, but I think Montreal got a lot better here. Now, Toronto, speaking of teams that didn't have to do anything, but they did it anyway, and they let go of what some would consider to be their franchise. Bondi Reed gets traded, an assistant captain, and Demetrius Lindbergh, one of the top scorers in this league. And they get Ravi Cutter, a very competent player who did not want to be in Vancouver. And they get Gabriella Davignon, a very good Delta player. I don't see that Toronto was really lost anything, even though they let go of a lot of their mainstays here. Now, let's move on to Detroit. But we have 2 players here, Maurizio Fiore, he's coming to Detroit, and Jack Ith. He is leaving because he did not want to be in Detroit any longer. So that one looks fairly even. Now, Memphis, the 3rd team that did nothing. Sometimes it's better to stand pat and don't do anything. They decided not to mess with the chemistry of this team. Now, last time, Chicago, they made a big splash. Now, here they continue to swim. Now, they let go of Bartel O'Martian, who they picked up from LA, and Jamie Ekstrom, and a 3rd round pick. And they got Fab Whittlesey and Kipper Grimmett and a 2nd rounder. I don't see Chicago getting any better. Now, Dallas, they let go of Fab Whittlesey and Alexander Farner, and they pick up Tyler Huerta, Rohan Kuno, and a 3rd round pick. I don't see Dallas moving up or down. Now, Denver. Denver says hello to former Miami captain Randy Magnuson, and they let go of Rick Daigneault and a 4th round pick. That doesn't seem to be very impactful. Now, Phoenix, they get Demetrius Lindbergh, a top scorer in this league, and as a result, have to say goodbye to Gabriella Davignon as a result. I hope that it was worth the sacrifice, because Gabriella is one hell of a player. Now, Los Angeles, I think they won this deal with Seattle. They got Max Durkee, and they only had to give up Lalo Celli and a third rounder. I think this LA team got a tiny bit better. Now, Salt Lake City, they pick up Alexander Farner and they let go of Rohan Kuno. I don't see a big difference. Now, Seattle, a team that really didn't need to do anything. I think they could have easily won the Wheel of Fire this year, but they make their team better. They get Chip Chiozzi, a guy that scored over 40 goals this year, and Lalo Celli, a good supplementary player, and they pick up a third round pick in exchange for Max Durkee, and Ariel Vignola, and a second rounder. This team just went from amazing to unstoppable. Now, Vancouver, they pull off a really good trade here. They get Bondi Reed from Toronto in exchange for a disenfranchised player who can also contribute in Ravi Cutter. That is the sum of the pickups and the trades so far. Now I'm just going to quickly go over who I think really won this trade deadline. I think that Miami got better in the long run, but not in the short term. I think Philadelphia just confirmed the fact that they're tearing this freaking house down to the ground and will soon be in 17th place. I think that Boston is going to try to get better through free agent signings or the waiver wire because they didn't do anything of note here. I think that Montreal got a bit better. Maybe they're hoping that they can catch Washington, who decided to do nothing. I think maybe Montreal may have been looking for some more consistency overall. So I think they got better. I think they can be in the playoffs with what they did here. Now, Toronto looks like they got some good players, but they also let go of some good players. For what? Peace of mind for the people that got traded? They get Ravi Cutter, but he didn't really want to be in Vancouver. But is he really better than Bondi Reed? And then you get Gabriela Davignon, who didn't want to have anything to do with Nan Freeling. And they have to let go of Demetrius Lindbergh as a result. I don't know if this is an even trade, but there's 4 players here that are very high caliber. Toronto may have gone down a little bit. They may have gone up a little bit. We'll see if the loss of these 2 players affect the chemistry of this team significantly. Now, Detroit, they lose Jack Ith. They pick up Maurizio Fiore. I don't think that is a real earth-shaking thing. I don't see that team getting any better. I see Memphis doing nothing, which if you're a player on the team and you're doing well, the last thing you want is the GM to mess with the chemistry of your squad. So as a result, they don't decide to get any better, but they didn't get any worse as a result. Now, Chicago, who couldn't get any bloody worse, they get Fab Whittlesey, and I don't think that that's a good trade for Bartel Omartian. I think they lost a little bit in that. They get Kipper Grimmett, which is an interesting player that didn't want to be who he was, but they lose Jamie Ekstrom, a mainstay on this team, and then there's a couple of draft picks that get exchanged, but I don't think Chicago got significantly better. The same with Dallas. I think that they lose Fab Whittlesey, they get Tyler Huerta, they get Rohan Kuno, but they have to lose Alexander Farner. I don't think that this team gets better, maybe a little bit incrementally, but not too much. Now, Denver looks like a team that tried to pick up a character player that could be playing better. But let's face it, Randy Magnuson has not been the same as in his college days. And they have to let go of Rick Daigneault and a 4th rounder. So I don't see that team getting much better either. Now, Phoenix, they have let go of Gabriela Davignon, who's big on character, big on skill. They get another player that was very, very good in Toronto. Time will tell the effect that this trade has made. Now, LA looks like they went up a little bit. They got Max Durkee. They fleeced him from Seattle for Lalo Celli in a third rounder. I think that team is going to get a little bit better. Will it be enough to get them into the Wheel of Fire? God freaking knows. Now, Salt Lake City does a minor deal where they pick up Alexander Farner for Rohan Kuno, and I don't see these two players being that significant of a change, and I don't see Salt Lake City getting any better. But we got Seattle here, who is far and above the best team in the league this year, and now they add Chip Chiozzi to the squad. What's this team going to score now? 48 goals a game? Holy shitballs. Did this team get better? They had to let go of Max Durkee and Ariel Vignola to do it. But will this team be better? Hell yeah, this team's going to be a lot better. So, I mean, God help anybody that has to face this team in the playoffs. Now, and then we'll finish it off with Vancouver, who made a high-skill player swap and send Ravi Cutter off to Toronto for Bondi Reed, which is a really good Delta player. As a result, you get Ravi Cutter, which is a lot of value for your money. So, that's how I see it. I see Seattle getting much better. I see Toronto, maybe they're the same, right? You got New York, didn't do anything here. You got Philadelphia, who's the only team that decided to blow up their freaking team. So, there we are. Those are the changes that have happened. We will see you in a few days' time when these new players get adjusted to their new teams. And we will see the results. And on to week 13. Let the action never stop. See ya.